And I'm not sure of the time in it, but it was could have been much more than 5 minutes after 6, somewhere in that neighborhood. We got down to South Third, I guess it is, going one way that way. And you know, there were more police you could shake a stick at down there by then. And we were stopped. We were told that we couldn't go through. Well, we had a pass from Holloman that had been secured by Baxter and Bryant, you know, the Tennessee Council on Human Relations, so that we could at least travel during the curfew time. And I think we finally got clearance from higher ups or somewhere to go into the motel complex. And the time span was very, very short. But by the time we got down there, there was a good-sized crowd of people there, and a goodly number of police all over the place. And we sort of just more milled around more than anything else, and talked to some of their staff people, trying to get an idea of what took place. And we stayed on until quite late that night, and we finally had the meeting, or a meeting with the SCLC staff people. Still trying to figure out where we were going to go with the meeting that night, and we decided not to have the meeting that night and to get the people who were at the church by then to go home. But I think at that point, you know, there was mixed views as to whether they should have it or not. At any rate, someone went over and maybe conducted it for a little while, then broke the crowd up.
That's right. We never have found out what happened to the meeting at the Mason Temple that night, as far as I can recall.
I think there was I think someone went over and explained to the crowd what had taken place.
Reverend Stark was over there.
I'm not sure who it was. But then we had to leave someone there to stop all the other people who would be coming there, expecting to have a meeting. And I think they imposed a curfew, if I recall.
Oh, yes.
And we had tried to work with them for them to make exemptions for people who were already out and headed for that meeting, or those who we had sent home. And we spent the rest of the evening ourselves trying to get the kids off the street, because they were coming out and you know, by the ton, going to Mason Temple. Many people heading for the Lorraine Motel. So our staff and whatever other people we could round up who had passes.
Well, how did you designate yourself?
Well, we didn't. When you say designate ourselves,
I mean, if you were going around in the curfew, how would you identify yourself as being permitted to go around?
Well, we had a pass. We had no other identification.
I see. But and then to people who were milling around or who didn't have identification, you would.
Right.
Could you get people to move back home?
Yeah. Could you show some authority? I mean, why would they listen to you?
No, we didn't. We weren't. It wasn't authority. It was just a discussion of what we felt might take place.
Yeah.
With people, you know, going in one direction, you know, in large crowds, large groups, because we completely, as far as we were concerned, understood the attitude and the philosophy of the police department. And we didn't want any situation developed that would provide an excuse for either beatings or jailings or anything else.
What is, or even was then, your reaction to what happened in Memphis as regard to other places? There wasn't as much, or, you know, there in 100 other cities they had.
It's just a hard thing to judge.
Of course, you weren't at the other cities. All we know are the reports, but.
I think maybe this attitude that had been projected that there was such great race relations in existence here in Memphis probably had something to do with the level of damage that took place immediately after the assassination. It's the only thing I can say, because Memphis was in fact the quietest place in the nation.
Yeah.
Why? I just don't know.
Yeah. Well, why don't you tell us? We want to know. What was do you recall that you had any reaction that you care to talk about in relation when you found out that Dr. King had indeed been killed?
Well, the thing that struck me, and I think it struck most of us, it was just the tremendous waste involved, and how the adamant position of maybe both sides in this thing had caused this to happen. For instance, maybe explore both sides as I personally saw them. Some of us who were directly involved raised the question with ourselves as to whether, you know, the sacrifice was worth each point that you refuse to back up beyond a certain limit on. You know, you sort of raised the question of had you given in to this yesterday, there would have been no need for this today. And all these questions go through your mind, and in particular my mind, because I was directly involved in the negotiations all through the thing, and therefore had some influence as to whether or not we went with this point or compromised on this issue or what have you. From the other side, as I see the mayor's position, is that the question of the demands that the employers were making were not so unreasonable.